Welcome to part three of my 13-part cast assessment for Amazing Race 35. Note the quotation marks. As always, I'm Logan Saunders, the TARstorian, and I will be annoying all 13 teams over the next several months. The earlier you're eliminated, the more I'll ignore you. Jesus Christ. Okay, so I'm going in order from who I think will shit the bed the most on the Amazing Race and not even make it to the first pit stop. I've had back pains. That's what the grunt was for. I feel like it's karma for what I'm about to say and what I have said already. I think that's why I'm getting these back pains. And I'm going through from who I think will shit the bed the most in 13th place through to who I think will cross the finish line first this season. And the reason why I know all of this is because I have looked up every single individual boot spoiler for this season. So that's how I know all of this. Just kidding. As always, I'm just screwing with you. So the team that I think will finish this season in, what are we at? Where are we at? 11th place? Is that where we're at? Is this only part three? Yeah, it is only part three. So this team, I think, will finish in 11th. So I don't think they're going to do too well, sadly. And that is Rob and Corey, father and son from California and New York City. So they've got the starting line and or the finish line for nearly every single season of Amazing Race covered. So that's an advantage for them at the start and the end of the season. But I don't see them at the end. So just like with Robin and Chelsea having the Washington State advantage, it's not going to come into play whatsoever. Rob is a teaching assistant, and Corey is a senior manager of strategy and analytics. Unfortunately, I do not have the data handy for how senior managers of strategy and analytics do in the history of the Amazing Race. That's a stat that's just it's easier to keep track of stats of father-son teams or all female teams, but senior managers of strategy and analytics, it's just never crossed my mind. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about the toy elephants that I use for my ESL classes, but that Rob is deaf. That's going to be their storyline. I think we all need to take a drink every time Phil Kogan in the previously on segment, or there's a confessional referencing that Rob is deaf. And it's not clear how deaf he is. Is he Adrian of Adrian and Colin deaf from Amazing Race Asia Season 2? Or like Luke Adams from seasons 14, 18, and 24 of The Amazing Race. Boy, season 24 of The Amazing Race really sucked, didn't it? That season was the fucking worst. So, of course, everyone said newer fans probably aren't even aware that we've had deaf contestants on various international versions of The Amazing Race. We even had a blind contestant on the Canadian version of Amazing Race, and he kicked a lot of ass. He's still like a champion cyclist in Belgium. Lowell Taylor. I interviewed him on the RTV Warriors podcast with Michael Harmstone. He's a hell of a guy. So people will think that deaf racers are at an inherent disadvantage, and they are. They are at a disadvantage. It's just there's going to be things, music tasks, it's not going to probably do too well. If it's a roadblock, that means Corey would have to do it. I don't know if anyone remembers the season premiere of season 14, but they had to follow the music to the pit stop. And this is the first time they ever did this. And they did it in the first episode of ever having a deaf contestant. And they did it as the first pit stop in season 14 with Luke. So Luke couldn't follow the music to the pit stop. He had to rely entirely upon Margie. So if there are things like that set up this season to highlight Rob being deaf, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. But as we know, Amazing Race Asia Season 2, a deaf contestant won, but he wasn't quite as deaf as Luke. And of course, Margie and Luke nearly won Season 14. They were this close to winning Season 14. And if it wasn't for Luke's taste buds being atrocious, they would have had a chance to win seasons 18 or 24. It would have been well appreciated in season 24, since I think everyone wanted to kick Dave and Connor's ass by the end of the season. Unless you're from the state of Utah, in which case you probably liked Dave and Connor. Let's see. Let's get away from Rob being deaf. That's not their whole storyline. Uh, oh, I know one thing. Uh, I know one thing. That's all I know. I just know one thing. Uh, Corey said several times on his social media that he's well traveled and he has been to, get this, I think 23 countries, or it was 18. It was some low number. And let's say it was 23. Let's pretend it was 23 and that I know what I'm talking about. So he says he's been to 23 countries. But that's not impressive at all. I've been to 63 countries. So I have been to almost 3 times as many countries as Corey. So I am like 2.8 times better than Corey MacArthur. So suck on that, Corey. I am so much better than you because I've been to 63 countries and you have barely been to a third of as many countries as I have. So you suck. Can you imagine somebody using their country count as a way to be superior over others? And they highlight how many countries they've been to by doing a daily Instagram write up, talking about their favorite countries from least favorite to favorite in their Instagram stories, doing one country per day. What kind of self absorbed jackass does that? Okay. Uh, let's see. So, the big question for me here is, are they going to be competitive or inspirational? And so far, it's leaning more towards the inspirational storyline, or that's at least the way that the pre production write ups and what the producers have been saying to various media have been highlighting. So we're going to find out really quickly. This is one of those things where right now it's a bit of a wild card, but by episode 1, I could pull a James Earl from season 27 for a Racers recap and completely change my opinion based on what I see. It's going to become very apparent very quickly where Rob and Corey are going to lean on the competitiveness spectrum. If it's just, oh, we're so happy to be here, or no, we're out for blood. We're gonna punch everybody in the face. We're gonna clobber Joel right in the beard if we have to. That could happen. And hey, if Rob and Corey live up to my prediction and they go home in 11th place or do slightly better and finish in 10th place, based on Amazing Race history, Corey, in about 15 years, you could end up on a couple seasons of Naked and Afraid. And in about 20 years, you could end up on a season of Buddy Games. So just because you go home early in season 35 of Amazing Race doesn't mean your reality TV career ends there. It'll just be on a very long and extended hiatus. And I just wish one day on Amazing Race, because one of my favorite movies is See No Evil, Hear No Evil with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Or is it Hear No Evil, See No Evil? I can't remember the exact title. That's one of my favorite comedies. So I think next season we need someone who is deaf or partially deaf and someone who is legally blind or partially blind. The comedic hilarity will ensue from there, as long as they have the comedic timing and intelligence and intuition that Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder do. I miss those guys. They were great. They were great comedians. They were great in my childhood. Although I think Richard Pryor was dead even before I was born. I was nostalgic for a time that I wasn't even around for. And hey, Johnny Depp really sucked as the new Willy Wonka. Granted, the new Willy Wonka was out like 15 or 20 years ago now, but Gene Wilder is the only Willy Wonka to me. I'm just saying. Okay, what the hell? Well, I really got off track here. We're already at 9 minutes. I had more to say about these two than freaking Robin and Chelsea. And yeah, I don't think I had anything really of substance to say about them. I just wanted to make all of those references. Let's see. Did I reference their age? Rob is 48. Corey is 25. Have we talked about other father-son teams? Dennis and Andrew, of course, really shit the bed in season 3. They were out in 10th place, and they're always at the bottom of the pack. They got to fast forward and still finished like 15 or 16 hours behind Terry and Ian in the 3rd episode of season 3. Season 3, of course. I love that season. That is gold. That final 3 in season 3. Awesome. Perfect. Peak of reality television. What a hell of a year in reality TV that was. In fact, episode 4 of season 3, I brought on a VHS tape to school in the 6th grade, and we got to watch that episode. That was fun. Good times. Let's see. What about other father-son teams? Are there any others? Really? It's not a common duo. We had grandfather and grandson cross the finish line. We had Nick and Don in season 12. How the hell did Don get across the finish line? He was almost dead by the end of it. Oh, of course, Mel and Mike, the White Lotus guy, and the guy who was on Survivor. Granted, Mel White, he's the only contestant who competed as a zombie on The Amazing Race. Did you see Mel White in Unfinished Business? Did somebody raise him from the dead? Did they use a resurrection stone? Because that's what it looked like. It didn't look like a person who was alive on this planet. He looked like he was dead 5 or 10 years ago. And I think and he was the oldest racer at that time. I think Jodie Kelly, who recently passed away, she was the oldest Amazing Race contestant ever for the American version. I think there was a really old dude that was in the only season of the Ukrainian version of Amazing Race. Maybe Canada's Speaker of the House could give him a round of applause. No one's going to get that joke. No Canadians watch what I do. Okay, that's it. We're at 11 minutes. I've rambled. I could have done more research with talking more about father-son teams, but there really haven't been that many that I can think of off the top of my head. I thought of 2. That's pretty good. I could have been more prepared for this. I'm going to mentally go through Lawrence and Zach, the British guy who went crazy on Facebook from season 19. Nah, he's not really crazy. He's a good guy. They got to like 6th place. That's okay. They did all right. Let's see, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I feel like father-daughter teams are more common than father-son teams. That's interesting. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, of course, Dave and Connor. I already made fun of them I've already made fun of them several times in these 3 parts. Dave and Connor won. They won season 24. Spoiler alert if you're going to watch the worst season of Amazing Race US history. But they won 4 out of their last 5 legs. And both seasons they did extremely well. And that was even with Dave's, what injury did he have that was mentioned 10,000 times? Oh, yeah, his Achilles. Even with their Achilles heel. They destroyed everybody. Who knew that even if you're slightly injured, you could still beat Caroline and Jennifer in pretty much every leg in seasons 22 and 24? Who knew that would be a tough ceiling to crack on The Amazing Race? All right, that's it. I did poorly on that one. I think if I talk about any other dynamics, I'm going to take at least 2 or 3 minutes to talk about it. Yeah. All right, that's it for now. Peace out until part 4 in a couple of minutes.